I'm Alexis Manson, 31, a pediatric nurse who spent years believing I was the forgotten middle child. For months, I've been planning the perfect gender reveal party for my first baby, every detail carefully chosen, every moment meant to celebrate. This miracle my husband Jake and I had waited 5 years to achieve. But 3 days before my party, my younger sister Emma announced her own pregnancy at our family dinner, complete with tears of joy and immediate plans for a celebration. The betrayal cut deep, but what shattered me completely was discovering the truth hidden in her bathroom cabinet that same evening. Emma wasn't just stealing my spotlight, she was living a lie that would destroy our family's trust forever. What I found that night, and what I chose to do with that knowledge, would expose secrets that ran far deeper than a fake pregnancy test. Sometimes the quiet ones hold all the power, and sometimes justice comes wrapped in the truth no one wants to hear. For 6 months, I had been meticulously planning what I thought would be the most perfect gender reveal party. Every detail had been chosen with care, from the soft pink and blue decorations that would transform our backyard into a dreamy wonderland, to the custom cake that our favorite baker had agreed to fill with colored buttercream. I had even ordered tiny matching onesies in both colors, planning to display them as part of the reveal moment. The invitations, printed on cream cardstock with elegant script, had been sent out 3 weeks prior. Each one carefully addressed, by hand, because this moment deserved that personal touch. Join us as we celebrate our little miracle, they read, with Jake and my names printed below in flowing gold letters. I had spent hours writing those invitations, my hand cramping, as I made sure each guest felt the love and excitement we had for this long-awaited blessing. You see, Jake and I had been trying to conceive for 5 years. 5 long years of negative pregnancy tests, doctor appointments, fertility treatments, and the monthly heartbreak that comes with hoping and being disappointed. We had almost given up when 3 months ago, those 2 pink lines finally appeared. I stared at that test for a full 10 minutes, hardly daring to believe it was real. When I showed Jake, we both cried tears of joy, relief, and overwhelming gratitude. This baby represented everything we had dreamed of, everything we had fought for. So yes, I wanted the announcement to be special. I wanted our family and friends to feel even a fraction of the joy we felt about this miracle growing inside. But Emma changed everything in a single dinner conversation. It was a Tuesday evening. At our parents' house, one of their regular family dinners that Mom insisted we all attend. Dad had just finished carving the roast when Emma cleared her throat with that dramatic flair she'd perfected since childhood. "I have some news," she announced, her voice trembling with what seemed like emotion. "I'm pregnant too." The silence that followed felt eternal. Then came the explosion of congratulations, the hugs, the tears of joy from Mom, and Dad's proud beaming. In that moment, sitting at the dinner table where I had planned to make my own announcement about the party, I watched my carefully planned celebration become secondary news. "Oh, honey, this is wonderful," Mom gushed, immediately moving to Emma's side. "How far along are you?" "About 8 weeks," Emma replied, placing her hand protectively over her still flat stomach. I wanted to be sure before I told everyone. Jake squeezed my hand under the table, and I could see the concern in his eyes. He knew how much this party meant to me, how much this whole pregnancy meant to me, but what could I say? My sister was pregnant too. I should have been happy for her. Instead, I felt something cold settle in my chest as I listened to Mom immediately begin planning Emma's celebration, suggesting dates and themes and guest lists. My own party, still 10 days away, suddenly felt like an afterthought, just another family gathering rather than the special moment I had envisioned. Sitting at that dinner table, watching my family fuss over Emma, I was transported back to every childhood moment when this exact scenario had played out. There was the time when I won the middle school science fair, only to have Emma announce she had gotten the lead in the school play the same day. Or when I graduated summa cum laude from nursing school, but Emma's breakup with her college boyfriend somehow became the family crisis that demanded everyone's attention. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a photo I kept from when we were kids, all four of us, at Christmas morning when I was 12 and Emma was 9. There I was, sitting politely with my gifts arranged neatly beside me, while Emma was captured mid-leap, arms full of wrapping paper, our parents laughing at her theatrical joy. Even in that frozen moment, you could see the pattern. I was the responsible one, the quiet achiever, while Emma was the sparkling star who drew everyone's gaze. Our older brother Matt had moved to Seattle years ago, partly, I suspected, to escape the Emma show that our family gatherings inevitably became. He called dutifully every few weeks, but he'd learned to love us from a distance. I envy him that freedom. "Alexis, sweetheart," Mom said, finally turning to me as the excitement around Emma's news began to settle. "I hope you don't mind if we adjust the plans for your party a bit. Emma shouldn't be around too much excitement in her condition, and we'll need to make sure there are plenty of places for her to sit. My party. Adjusted for Emma's comfort, of course." Actually, Emma chimed in, her voice taking on that slightly helpless tone she'd mastered. "I've been having some morning sickness. Nothing too serious, but strong smells really bother me. Maybe we could skip the barbecue part." I had spent weeks planning the menu. Jake's famous ribs were supposed to be the centerpiece, paired with my grandmother's potato salad recipe. But I found myself nodding, agreeing to change everything to accommodate my sister's needs. Just like I always did, Jake's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He'd watched this dynamic play out for the 8 years we'd been together, and I could see his growing frustration with my family's inability to let me have even one moment without Emma's needs taking priority. "You know what?" Jake said, his voice carefully controlled. "Maybe we should keep the original plan. It's Alexis's party after all. Emma can always step outside if she needs some air." The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably, and Mom's smile became strained. "Of course, we want Alexis to have her special day," Mom said in that tone she used when she was trying to keep peace, but clearly thought someone was being unreasonable. "But family takes care of family. We all need to be considerate of Emma's condition. 8 weeks pregnant, as she was telling the truth, which meant she was barely showing any symptoms yet. But somehow her potential discomfort was more important than celebrating the miracle baby I'd waited 5 years to conceive. Later, as Jake and I drove home in tense silence, he finally spoke. "This is bullshit, Lex. You know that, right?" I did know it. But knowing it and being able to change it were two very different things. This was the family dynamic I'd been born into, the role I'd been assigned since Emma's dramatic entrance into the world. I was the accommodating one, the peacekeeper, the one who adjusted her dreams to make room for everyone else's needs. But something felt different this time. Maybe it was the hormones, or maybe it was just that I'd finally reached my limit. As I touched my growing belly, I realized I didn't want my child to grow up watching their mother disappear every time Aunt Emma needed attention. 3 days after Emma's announcement, I decided to be the bigger person. Despite my hurt feelings, I wanted to congratulate my sister properly and maybe find a way for us both to celebrate our pregnancies together. I stopped by her apartment on my way home from work, carrying a small gift bag with some ginger tea and prenatal vitamins things. That had helped me during my first trimester. Emma seemed surprised to see me, but welcomed me in with her usual dramatic flair. "Oh, Alexis, I'm so glad you came by. I've been feeling absolutely terrible today. The morning sickness is just overwhelming." She did look pale, I'll give her that. She'd always been good at looking the part when she needed sympathy. I handed her the gift bag and watched as she opened it, her face lighting up with what seemed like genuine gratitude. "These are perfect, thank you. I should probably take one right now, actually." She headed toward her bathroom, and I settled on her couch, looking around at her always immaculate apartment. That's when I heard it, the sound of a box being knocked over in the bathroom, followed by Emma's muffled curse. A few seconds later, she emerged looking flustered. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, just clumsy." "You know how pregnancy brain is." I nodded sympathetically, though privately I thought it was a bit early for pregnancy brain to be setting in. After chatting for another 20 minutes about baby names and due dates, I excused myself to use the restroom before heading home. That's where I saw it, on the floor beside the toilet. Partially hidden under a hand towel was an empty pregnancy test box. But it wasn't just any pregnancy test box, it was one I'd never seen before, with words that made my blood run cold. "Prank pregnancy test always shows positive result." My hands shook as I picked up the box, reading the fine print that explained how the test was designed for jokes and pranks, guaranteed to show 2 lines regardless of actual pregnancy status. The manufacturing date showed it had been purchased just last week. I sat on the edge of Emma's bathtub, staring at that box as the reality of what I was holding crashed over me like ice water. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a coincidence. Emma had deliberately purchased a fake pregnancy test to lie to our entire family. But why? And more importantly, how far was she planning to take this deception? I quickly took a photo of the box with my phone before carefully placing it back where I found it. My mind was racing as I tried to process what this meant. Emma wasn't pregnant. She had never been pregnant. She had orchestrated this entire lie just days before my gender reveal party. The timing wasn't coincidental either. She had known about my party. I'd mentioned it at the previous family dinner. She had deliberately chosen to upstage me with a fabricated pregnancy, stealing the attention and support that should have been mine during one of the most important moments of my life. When I emerged from the bathroom, Emma was waiting with a concerned expression. "You were in there a while? Are you feeling okay?" I managed to nod, though I felt anything but okay. Just tired. I should head home. As I drove home, my mind kept returning to that empty box. The evidence was clear, but I still couldn't quite believe it. This level of deception was beyond anything Emma had done before. This wasn't just attention-seeking, this was a calculated lie that would eventually hurt everyone in our family, especially our parents who were already planning and dreaming about their newest grandchild. I needed to think carefully about what to do next. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the fake pregnancy test box. Jake found me sitting at our kitchen table, staring blankly at my laptop screen, the photo of the box pulled up on my phone beside me. "What's wrong?" he asked, settling into the chair next to me. "You've been quiet since you got home." I showed him the photo, watching his expression change from confusion to disbelief to anger. "She's not actually pregnant," I said quietly. "She bought a fake test to lie to everyone." Jake was silent for a long moment, processing what I'd told him. Finally, he spoke. "How long do you think she's planning to keep this up?" That was exactly what I'd been wondering. "I don't know, but I need to find out how deep this goes." Over the next few hours, I became a detective investigating my own sister. I started with her social media, scrolling back through her recent posts with new eyes. Sure enough, there were subtle hints I'd missed before, posts about feeling different, and mysterious changes that I'd initially dismissed as Emma's typical dramatic flair. But now I could see the pattern. She'd been laying groundwork for this announcement for weeks, creating a narrative that would make her pregnancy seem genuine and carefully considered. Not impulsive. Jake suggested we look into her recent purchases, and I remembered that Emma had always been careless about leaving her mail around. The last time I'd visited, there had been credit card statements on her kitchen counter, I made a mental note to pay more attention next time I was over there. Meanwhile, I decided to do some research on fake pregnancy symptoms. What I found was both disturbing and enlightening. There were entire websites dedicated to helping people fake pregnancies, complete with guides on symptoms to exhibit, products to purchase, and timelines to follow. The level of detail was staggering, from fake ultrasound images to prosthetic bellies that grew larger each month. "Look at this," I said, turning my laptop toward Jake. "You can buy fake ultrasound photos online. They look completely real." Jake leaned over to read the screen, his frown deepening. "This is insane. Who does this?" I thought about my sisters. History of attention-seeking behavior, her need to always be the center of our family's focus. "Someone who's desperate to be the star of every show," I said as the evening wore on. I found myself remembering other times when Emma's behavior had seemed off. Her last relationship had ended 6 months ago, and she'd been struggling with feeling left behind as her friends got married and started families. She'd made several comments about feeling like she was falling behind in life, about wanting something meaningful and important to happen to her. I also remembered how she'd reacted when I'd first told the family about my fertility struggles years ago. While everyone else had been supportive and sympathetic, Emma had seemed almost jealous of the attention my struggles were receiving. At the time, I dismissed it as my imagination. But now I wondered if I'd been right to feel that way. Jake brought me a cup of tea and sat back down beside me. "What are you going to do?" That was the million-dollar question. Part of me wanted to confront Emma immediately, to demand the truth and end the charade before it went any further. But another part of me, the part that had been trained since childhood to protect Emma and keep family peace, hesitated. "I need more evidence," I said finally. "If I'm going to accuse her of something this serious, I need to be absolutely certain." "And then what?" I touched my belly, feeling the slight curve where my real baby was growing. "Then I'm going to make sure she doesn't ruin my gender reveal party with her lies. This baby deserves to be celebrated honestly, without being overshadowed by Emma's manipulative games." Jake nodded, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He knew my family dynamics well enough to understand that confronting Emma wouldn't be simple or easy. There would be fallout, accusations, and probably attempts to make me the villain in the situation. But for the first time in my life, I felt ready to put my own needs and my baby's needs first. The next morning, I decided to test my theory about my parents' role in enabling Emma's behavior. I called my mother under the pretense of discussing party preparations, but I had an ulterior motive. "Mom, I've been thinking about what you said about adjusting the party for Emma," I began carefully. "I'm just wondering if maybe we should wait to see how she's feeling that day before making changes." There was a pause before Mom responded, and I could hear that familiar tone creeping into her voice, the one she used when she thought I was being difficult. "Alexis, honey, I know you're excited about your party, but Emma is in a delicate condition. We need to put her health first. You of all people should understand that, being a nurse." "But Mom, she's only 8 weeks along. Most women don't have severe symptoms that early." "Emma isn't most women," Mom interrupted. "She's always been more sensitive than others. Remember when she was little, how she'd get sick easier than you or Matt? Some people just have more delicate constitutions." I remembered those childhood illnesses very differently. Emma had learned early that being sick meant getting extra attention, special treatment, an exemption from responsibilities, butt pointing. That out had never gone well for me in the past. "I just think maybe we should let Emma decide for herself what she can handle." I tried again. "Oh, sweetheart." Mom's voice became condescending in that way that made my teeth clench. "Emma would never admit she was struggling. She's too considerate of others. She wouldn't want to worry anyone or cause problems. That's why it's up to us to look out for her." After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone, rereading the text messages Mom had sent me over the past few days. Mixed in with questions about the party were constant updates about Emma's condition, how tired she was, how nauseated she felt, how overwhelmed she seemed. It was like Mom had appointed herself as Emma's personal spokesperson and medical advocate, but there were no similar messages about my pregnancy, no check-ins about how I was feeling or if I needed anything. I was nearly 5 months along, clearly, showing and dealing with my own pregnancy symptoms, yet somehow Emma's fake 8-week pregnancy was consuming all of Mom's maternal concern. I decided to do a little experiment. I texted Mom. I had some spotting yesterday and I'm worried. Could you come with me to the doctor? The response came back immediately. Oh no. Are you okay? Should I call Dr. Peterson? Do you need me to drive you to the hospital? Then I texted. Never mind, false alarm, just some normal discharge. Sorry for worrying you. Within minutes, my phone rang. Alexis, you scared me to death. Are you sure you're okay? Maybe you should go to the doctor anyway, just to be safe. I could come over? And Mom, I'm fine. It was nothing. Well, promise me you'll be more careful. You need to take better care of yourself. Speaking of which, I hope you're not planning anything too strenuous for your party. Emma mentioned she might need to leave early if she starts feeling sick, and someone should drive her home if that happens. And just like that, the conversation shifted back to Emma's needs. It was almost impressive how quickly Mom could pivot any discussion about my well-being into concern for Emma's comfort. That evening, I shared the conversation with Jake, who listened with growing frustration. Your mother is unbelievable, he said. She's more worried about Emma's fake morning sickness than your real pregnancy. That's the thing, I said. I don't think she's consciously choosing Emma over me. I think she's been enabling Emma's behavior for so long that she genuinely believes Emma needs more help and protection than anyone else. Jake shook his head. That doesn't make it okay. He was right, of course. But understanding the psychology behind my mother's behavior helped me realize something important. If I was going to expose Emma's lie, I couldn't count on my parents to be rational or supportive. They were so deeply invested in their role as Emma's protectors that they might not be able to accept the truth. Even when presented with clear evidence, I was going to have to be prepared to stand alone in this fight, at least initially. The thought was terrifying, but also somehow liberating. For once in my life, I was going to prioritize truth over family harmony. Jake's suggestion to gather concrete evidence made sense, but I needed to be strategic about it. I couldn't just rely on the fake pregnancy test box. Emma could claim she'd bought it as a joke or for a friend. I needed something more substantial, more undeniable to the next day. I made an appointment with Dr. Sarah Chun, our family physician who had been seeing both Emma and me for years. I framed it as a routine pregnancy checkup, but I had an ulterior motive. Dr. Chun, I said after she'd finished examining me, I wanted to ask you about something. Emma mentioned she's been having severe morning sickness, and I was wondering if you had any suggestions for helping her manage it. Dr. Chun looked puzzled. Emma, is she pregnant? She says she is. About 8 weeks along. Interesting. She hasn't been in to see me, and she hasn't called for prenatal care recommendations. Most women schedule their first appointment as soon as they find out, especially if they're experiencing symptoms. I felt a chill of validation. Maybe she's seeing someone else. It's possible, but she's been my patient for 15 years. It would be unusual for her to switch doctors for something this important without mentioning it. Dr. Chun studied my face carefully. Is there something you're not telling me, Alexis? I hesitated, then decided to trust her professional discretion. I found something at Emma's apartment that made me question whether she's actually pregnant. Doctor, Chun listened without judgment as I explained about the fake pregnancy test box. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. That's concerning, she said finally. If Emma is fabricating a pregnancy, she needs psychological help. But Alexis, I have to ask, are you certain about what you saw? I showed her the photo on my phone. Dr. Chan examined it carefully, then nodded grimly. This is serious. Faking a pregnancy isn't just lying, it can be a sign of deeper psychological issues. Has Emma exhibited other attention-seeking behaviors? I could have laughed at the understatement, but instead I gave Dr. Chan a brief overview of Emma's history. She listened, taking notes occasionally. I'd like to help, Dr. Chen said, but there are ethical and legal limitations to what I can do without Emma's consent. However, I can tell you that if she were truly 8 weeks pregnant and experiencing severe symptoms, she should be under medical supervision. The fact that she hasn't sought prenatal care is telling. I filled out a medical records request form asking Dr. Chun's office to document that Emma had not been seen for prenatal care despite claiming to be pregnant and experiencing symptoms. It wasn't much, but it was something concrete. When I got home, Jake was waiting with news of his own investigation. I did some digging into Emma's social media, he said, pulling up her Instagram account on his laptop. Look at this. He created a timeline of Emma's posts from the past month, and the pattern was unmistakable. She'd been dropping hints about changes and new chapters and feeling different for weeks before her announcement. But more tellingly, she'd been liking and commenting on pregnancy-related content, following mommy bloggers, and even sharing articles about pregnancy symptoms. She's been building a narrative, Jake said. Look at this post from 2 weeks ago. She talks about feeling mysteriously tired and craving weird food combinations. She was preparing people to accept her pregnancy announcement. The level of premeditation was staggering. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment lie. It was a carefully orchestrated deception. There's more, Jake continued. I checked her Venmo history. She's been making payments to someone called Bump Alert for the past 3 weeks. I looked it up. It's an online store that sells fake pregnancy supplies. I stared at the evidence accumulating on our kitchen table photos, social media screenshots, payment records, medical documentation. It painted a clear picture of deliberate fraud, but I still couldn't quite believe my own sister was capable of such calculated deception. What kind of person does this? I asked aloud. Jake reached over and took my hand. Someone who's never been held accountable for their actions. Someone who's learned that manipulation works better than honesty. I knew he was right, but that knowledge didn't make what I was about to do any easier. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, writing in the journal I'd been keeping throughout my pregnancy, a record I'd planned to give to my child someday. But now, instead of documenting the joy and anticipation of expecting a baby, I was processing the betrayal and manipulation that had overshadowed what should have been one of the happiest times of my life. I never thought I'd have to write about something like this, I began. I'm sitting here at 2 a.m., trying to figure out how to handle the fact that my own sister has been lying to our entire family about being pregnant. The evidence is overwhelming, but I still feel like I'm in some alternate universe where the people I love are capable of such cruelty. Writing helped me organize my thoughts and emotions. I realized that my struggle wasn't just about Emma's lie, it was about years of being conditioned to prioritize her needs over my own, to keep the peace at the expense of my own well-being, to always be the understanding, accommodating sister who never made waves. But this is different, I continued writing. This isn't about Emma getting more attention or being the favorite child. This is about her deliberately sabotaging one of the most important moments of my life. And if I don't stand up to her now, if I let her get away with this, what message am I sending to my child? That it's okay to lie and manipulate as long as you don't get caught. That some people's feelings matter more than others. I looked up from my journal to see Jake standing in the doorway, concern etched on his face. Can't sleep either. he asked, coming to sit beside me. I keep thinking about the gender reveal party, I said. Part of me wants to just cancel the whole thing, avoid the confrontation entirely. But that would mean letting Emma win, letting her destroy something that was supposed to celebrate our baby. Jake was quiet for a moment, then said something that surprised me. What if we use the party as the venue for exposing her lie? What do you mean? Think about it. Emma is expecting to share the spotlight at your celebration. She's probably planning to make some dramatic gesture about her own pregnancy, maybe talk about how wonderful it is that your kids will be so close in age. What if, instead of letting her steal your moment, you use that moment to reveal the truth about her deception? The idea was both terrifying and appealing. You mean expose her publicly? I mean tell the truth publicly. There's a difference. I considered this. Emma had made her false announcement publicly at a family dinner with everyone present. She'd been performing her pregnancy symptoms publicly, garnering sympathy and attention from everyone we knew. Maybe it was only appropriate that the truth be revealed just as publicly. I don't want to humiliate her, I said slowly. I just want her to stop lying. Then give her a chance to tell the truth herself first, Jake suggested. Confront her privately, before the party. If she comes clean and apologizes, then maybe you can handle it as a family matter. But if she doubles down on the lie, then I tell everyone at the party. I finished his thought, feeling a mix of dread and determination. We spent the rest of the night planning exactly how to approach Emma. I would visit her the day before the party, present the evidence I'd gathered, and give her a chance to confess. If she refused, I would prepare a presentation for the party itself, not a vindictive attack, but a calm, factual revelation of the truth. Jake helped me organize all the evidence into a folder: photos, payment records, medical documentation, social media screenshots. It was thorough and damning, but I took no joy in compiling it. This was my sister we were talking about, someone I'd loved and protected my entire life. But as I touched my growing belly, I realized that my priorities were shifting. My first loyalty was no longer to keeping Emma happy or maintaining family peace. My first loyalty was to my child and to the values I wanted to pass on to them. Truth mattered more than comfort. Integrity mattered more than keeping secrets. And sometimes love meant holding people accountable for their actions, even when it was difficult and painful. I was finally ready to stop being Emma's enabler and start being my child's role model. Over the next few days, Emma's pregnancy performance reached new heights of drama. She called me twice complaining of severe nausea, posted Instagram stories about her pregnancy struggles, and even showed up at Mom and Dad's house looking pale and exhausted, claiming she'd been up all night being sick. The breaking point came when she arrived at our weekly family dinner with what she claimed was her first ultrasound photo. Look, she announced, pulling a black and white image from her purse with trembling hands. I finally got to see the baby today. Isn't it amazing? Everyone gathered around as Emma displayed the ultrasound photo, pointing out what she claimed were the baby's head and tiny limbs. Mom started crying, Dad got misty-eyed, and even Jake leaned in to look, though I saw him shoot me a questioning glance. I stared at that ultrasound image, my nursing training kicking in automatically. Something looked off about it, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what. The quality seemed strange, and the measurements didn't quite align with what I'd expect for an 8-week pregnancy. Which doctor did you see? I asked casually. Emma's eyes darted away from mine for just a moment. Dr. Martinez, she's new, comes highly recommended. I'd love her contact information, I said. Maybe I should make an appointment to get a second opinion on my pregnancy. Oh, she's not taking new patients right now, Emma replied quickly. Super busy, you know how it is. After dinner, while Emma was in the bathroom and our parents were cleaning up, I quickly took a photo of the ultrasound image with my phone. Later that night, Jake and I examined it more closely on my laptop. Something's definitely wrong with this, I said, zooming in on the image. The hospital identification is blurry, the measurements are inconsistent, and I paused, realizing something. Jake, look at the date. He leaned closer to the screen. What about it? The date on this ultrasound is from 3 weeks ago, but Emma just announced her pregnancy 5 days ago. If this was her first ultrasound and she's 8 weeks pregnant, now she would have gotten this done when she was only 5 weeks along. That's extremely early for a first ultrasound, especially for someone without complications. Jake shook his head in disgust. She really went all out for this lie, didn't she? I did some research and discovered that fake ultrasound images were easier to obtain than I'd imagined. There were websites where you could order them, apps that would generate them, and even tutorials on how to create convincing fakes using Photoshop. Emma had clearly done her homework, but her performance was starting to show cracks. The next day, she called me in tears. "Alexis, I don't know what to do," she sobbed. "The morning sickness is getting worse, and I'm so scared something's wrong with the baby. What if I'm not eating enough? What if all this stress is hurting the pregnancy?" Any remaining doubt I had about confronting her evaporated in that moment. This wasn't just about stealing attention anymore. Emma was now actively manipulating our family's emotions, making them worry and fear for a baby that didn't exist. She was causing genuine distress to people who loved her, all for her own selfish need to be the center of attention. "Emma," I said carefully, "have you been tracking your symptoms? Keeping a journal or anything? Why would I need to do that?" "Well, if you're having concerns, your doctor will want detailed information about what you've been experiencing and when. It might be helpful to have records." There was a long pause. I hadn't thought of that. Of course she hadn't, because there were no real symptoms to track that evening. Emma posted a lengthy Instagram story about her pregnancy journey, complete with photos of ginger ale, saltine crackers, and prenatal vitamins arranged artfully on her coffee table. The performance was so over the top that I wondered how anyone could believe it was genuine. But looking at the comments, I realized that most people did believe it. Friends and family members were offering sympathy, sharing their own pregnancy stories, and giving advice. Emma was getting exactly what she wanted: attention, sympathy, and the feeling of being important and special. The thought of my parents lying awake at night worrying about their youngest daughter's difficult pregnancy made my stomach turn. The thought of Emma eventually having to miscarry, this fictional baby to end her charade, made me feel physically ill. 2 days before my gender reveal party, I made my decision. I was going to confront Emma the next day, and if she didn't come clean, I was going to tell everyone the truth at the party. My child deserved to be celebrated honestly, and my family deserved to know they'd been manipulated and lied to Dot. It was time to end Emma's performance, one way or another. The day before the gender reveal party, everything seemed to spiral out of control. I woke up to 3 missed calls from my mother and a series of increasingly frantic text messages. "Emma's been up all night vomiting. She's really struggling. Maybe we should postpone your party until she's feeling better. I'm worried this stress isn't good for her pregnancy. Can we make it a smaller gathering? Emma says she doesn't want to ruin your special day, but I think she should stay home. What do you think?" I stared at those messages, feeling a familiar rage building in my chest. Even now, the day before my own celebration, Emma was managing to make it all about her. And the worst part was that my mother was falling for it completely, ready to derail my party to accommodate Emma's fake illness. I called Mom back, trying to keep my voice steady. "How long has Emma been sick?" She called me around midnight, crying and throwing up. I've been texting her all morning, and she says she can barely keep water down. Poor thing. Did she go to the doctor? She doesn't want to bother Dr. Martinez on the weekend unless it's an emergency. You know how Emma is always thinking of others. I almost laughed at that description, but managed to restrain myself. Mom, I've been planning this party for months. Everyone's already confirmed they're coming. The cake is ordered, the decorations are ready. I know, sweetheart, and I'm sure everyone will understand. Family comes first, and Emma needs us right now. There I was again, Emma's needs trumping everyone else's plans, just like always. But this time felt different because I knew the truth. Actually, Mom, I think Emma should come to the party. Fresh air might help her feel better. Alexis, that's very sweet of you to be concerned, but I don't think Emma is up for a party right now. After I hung up, I looked at my party planning notebook, filled with months of careful preparation. Lists of decorations, menu planning, seating arrangements, timeline for the reveal itself. Every detail had been thoughtfully considered, from the pink and blue balloons to the special cookies shaped like baby bottles. Jake found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my notebook with tears in my eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked. Immediately moving to comfort me. I explained about Emma's latest performance and Mom's suggestion to postpone the party. Jake's expression grew darker with each detail. "That's it," he said firmly. "We're ending this tomorrow. No more games, no more manipulation. Emma has pushed this too far." Part of me felt relieved at his certainty, but another part of me felt terrified. What if I'm wrong? What if she really is sick? Jake pulled up Emma's Instagram on his phone and showed me her latest posts. There was a photo from just a few hours earlier showing her at a coffee shop, looking perfectly healthy and smiling brightly. The timestamp showed it was posted around the same time she was supposedly calling Mom about being violently ill. "She's not sick, Lex. She's performing. And she's using Mom's worry to try to sabotage your party." I knew he was right, but confronting Emma still felt terrifying. This wasn't just about calling out a lie. It was about fundamentally changing the dynamic of our family. Refusing to be the accommodating sister who always stepped aside for Emma's drama. That afternoon, I drove to Emma's apartment with my folder of evidence and my heart pounding. I had rehearsed what I was going to say, practiced staying calm and factual rather than accusatory. I was going to give her one last chance to tell the truth, but when I knocked on her door, there was no answer. I could see her car in the parking lot, and the lights were on in her apartment, but she didn't respond to my knocking or phone calls. I stood outside her door for 20 minutes, knowing she was inside and choosing not to answer. It felt symbolic somehow, Emma hiding from the consequences of her actions, leaving me standing alone with the truth she didn't want to face. As I drove home, I realized that Emma had made my decision for me. By refusing to face me, she'd chosen to let her lie continue. Tomorrow, at my gender reveal party, I would give our family the truth. She was too cowardly to provide herself. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. "Emma's feeling a little better, but still very weak. She's going to try to come tomorrow. For a little while, but she might need to leave early." I typed back, "Tell her to make sure she comes. It's going to be a very memorable day." The morning of my gender reveal party arrived with the kind of perfect autumn weather that makes you believe everything will work out exactly as planned. I stood in my kitchen at 7 a.m., staring at the magnificent 3-tiered cake that had been delivered by our baker. It was everything I dreamed of: elegant white fondant, decorated with delicate sugar flowers and tiny fondant baby booties, hiding the secret pink or blue buttercream that would finally reveal whether we were having a son or daughter for months. This cake had represented the culmination of 5 years of struggle, hope, and unwavering faith. Now, as I looked at its pristine perfection, I realized it had become something else entirely, a symbol of the choice I was about to make between protecting a lie and revealing an uncomfortable truth. Jake emerged from our bedroom, his hair still, disheveled from sleep, and found me contemplating the cake like it held the secrets of the universe. "You're up early," he said, pressing a gentle kiss to my temple. "How are you feeling about today?" Like I'm about to change everything, I admitted, my hand unconsciously moving to rest on my rounded belly. Like after today, our family will never be the same. Jake poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter beside me. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe your family needs to change. He was right, though the prospect still terrified me. This wasn't just about exposing Emma's deception, it was about fundamentally altering the dynamic that had governed our family for decades. It was about refusing to be the accommodating sister who always stepped aside to make room for Emma's. By 9 a.m., our backyard was transformed into a celebration worthy of the miracle we were announcing. Pink and blue streamers cascaded from tree branches, balloon arches framed the deck, and tables draped in crisp white linens awaited the feast Jake had been preparing for days. Every detail reflected the joy and anticipation we felt about meeting our child. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was using Emma's favorite colors, the ones she'd insisted would be too stimulating for her delicate condition, to celebrate my genuine pregnancy. While preparing to expose her fabricated one dot at 10:30, Mom called with her daily Emma update. She had a rough night again, sweetheart. More nausea and some cramping that has me worried. But she's insisting on coming because she doesn't want to miss your special day. That's very considerate of her, I replied, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. She's always been thoughtful that way. Even as a little girl, she put others before herself. I just hope the party won't be too overwhelming for her in her condition. I almost laughed at Mom's description of Emma as selfless, but instead I said, I'm sure she'd be fine. The fresh air might actually help her feel better. Oh, I hope so. She mentioned she might need to sit down frequently, and she's worried about strong smells bothering her stomach. You know how sensitive she gets when she's not feeling well? After hanging up, I realized Mom was still managing Emma's narrative even hours before I planned to dismantle it completely. The pattern was so deeply ingrained that my mother couldn't see how she was being manipulated. Even with obvious inconsistencies staring her in the face, guests began arriving at noon, filling our home with genuine excitement and love. My coworkers from the pediatric unit came bearing gifts and stories about the babies they'd helped deliver that week. College friends traveled from 3 states away to celebrate with us. Neighbors who'd watched our fertility journey with compassionate hearts brought flowers and warm embraces. The energy was infectious and pure, exactly what I'd hoped for when I first began planning this. Celebration months ago, Emma's entrance at 12:45 was perfectly calculated theater. She moved slowly through our backyard, one hand pressed protectively against her stomach, accepting gentle hugs and concerned inquiries about her health. She'd mastered the art of looking fragile without appearing dramatic, vulnerable without seeming attention-seeking. Alexis, darling, she said, embracing me with careful tenderness. I almost didn't make it. I was so sick this morning, but I couldn't bear to miss this moment. You've waited so long for this celebration. I have waited a long time, I agreed, my words carrying weight she couldn't possibly understand. And I'm not going to let anything ruin it. For the next hour, I watched Emma work the crowd with practiced expertise. She shared carefully edited details about her pregnancy symptoms, displayed her fake ultrasound photo, and graciously accepted advice from well-meaning relatives about managing morning sickness. Each interaction was a masterclass in manipulation, designed to generate maximum sympathy while maintaining the illusion of brave. Selflessness. The folder containing my evidence sat on the kitchen counter like a loaded weapon waiting to be fired. In 20 minutes, I would gather everyone around the cake for the moment we'd all been anticipating. The question was no longer whether I would expose Emma's deception, but how our family would survive the explosion that was about to follow. As I touched my belly and felt my daughter's strong kick against my ribs, I knew with absolute certainty that I was making the right choice. This child deserved to enter a world built on truth, not constructed from lies designed to serve someone else's need for attention. Today would indeed change everything. And for the first time in my adult life, I was ready to prioritize what was right over what was comfortable. At 2 p.m., Jake began gathering everyone around the cake table for the big reveal. I watched our guests form a circle, phones and cameras ready to capture the moment when we would learn whether we were having a son or daughter. The excitement was palpable, and for a brief moment, I felt the pure joy this day was supposed to bring. Emma positioned herself strategically near the front of the group, one hand still pressed to her stomach. She'd been playing up her pregnancy symptoms all afternoon, mentioning her nausea to anyone who would listen and accepting offers to bring her water or find her a chair. Before we cut the cake, I announced, my voice carrying across the yard, Jake and I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate this miracle with us. This baby represents 5 years of hoping, praying, and never giving up. There were murmurs of support and love from the crowd. Several people knew about our fertility struggles, and I could see tears in some eyes as they thought about our journey to this moment. We also want to thank you for being part of our village, Jake added, putting his arm around me. This child is going to be so lucky to have all of you in their life. I reached for the cake knife, my hands trembling slightly, though not from excitement about the gender reveal. In my peripheral vision, I could see Emma preparing for what she probably thought would be her moment to share the spotlight, maybe to make some comment about how wonderful it would be for our children to grow up together. That as I held the knife poised above the beautiful cake, I made a decision. I was going to give Emma one final opportunity to tell the truth herself. Actually, I said, lowering the knife, before we find out about our baby, I think Emma has something she'd like to share with everyone. All eyes turned to Emma, who looked momentarily confused. What do you mean? Well, you've been going through such a difficult time with your pregnancy, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Maybe you'd like to tell everyone how you're really feeling? Emma's face brightened, clearly thinking I was offering her the attention she craved. Oh, well, it has been challenging. The morning sickness is just overwhelming, and I've been so worried about the baby. The baby, I repeated. Yes, tell. Use about the baby, Emma. When did you first know you were pregnant? Something in my tone must have alerted her because I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. Well, I took the test a few weeks ago. What kind of test? The question hung in the air. Emma's eyes darted around the circle of faces watching her, all waiting for her response. I could see her calculating, trying to figure out where this was going and how to navigate it. Just a regular pregnancy test, she said finally, from the drugstore. And it was positive? Of course it was positive. Why would you? Emma stopped, mid-sentence, and I saw the moment when she realized I knew something. Her face went paler than she'd been pretending to be all day. The guests were starting to sense the tension, though they couldn't quite understand what was happening. My mother stepped forward, looking concerned. Alexis, honey, what's going on? Is everything okay? I looked around at all these people who loved Emma, who had been worrying about her health and celebrating her pregnancy. They deserved to know the truth. Emma, I said quietly, would you like to tell everyone the truth, or should I? The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. In that moment, I saw my sister not as the confident performer she'd always been, but as someone trapped by her own lies, with nowhere left to run. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered, but there was no conviction in her voice. That's when I realized I was really going to do this. I was going to expose my sister's lie in front of our entire family. I walked into the house and returned with the folder I'd prepared, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. The guests watched in confused silence as I opened the folder and pulled out the first piece of evidence. 3 days ago, I began, my voice steady despite the chaos I was about to unleash. I found this in Emma's bathroom. I held up the photo of the fake pregnancy test box, large enough for everyone in the front to see clearly. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people read the words, "Prank pregnancy test, always shows positive result." Emma's face went from pale, "Tio Ashen, Alexis, you can't, this is a box for a fake pregnancy test." I continued, speaking directly to our parents. "A test designed to show positive results regardless of whether someone is actually pregnant." Emma purchased this test 1 week before she announced her pregnancy to our family. Mom stepped forward, shaking her head. "There must be some misunderstanding. Emma, tell them this is a mistake." But Emma couldn't speak. She stood frozen, staring at the evidence in my hands like a deer caught in headlights. I pulled out the next item printouts of Emma's Venmo payments. These are records of payments Emma made to Bump Alert, an online store that specializes in fake pregnancy supplies. 3 separate transactions over the past month, totaling $127. Jake moved closer to me, providing silent support as I continued my presentation. The crowd was completely silent now, everyone straining to understand what they were witnessing. "This," I said, holding up another photo, "is the ultrasound image Emma showed everyone last week, claiming it was her first doctor's appointment. The date stamp shows it was supposedly taken 3 weeks ago, which would mean she got an ultrasound when she was only 5 weeks. Pregnant, highly unusual for a first appointment. More importantly, I had our family doctor verify that Emma has not been seen for prenatal care at all." Dad found his voice first. "Emma, is this true?" Emma looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. Tears started streaming down her face, but she still couldn't form words. "The morning sickness she's been describing," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "The dramatic symptoms, the need for special accommodations, all of it has been an act. Emma is not pregnant. She has never been pregnant. She fabricated this entire situation to steal attention from my gender reveal party." The explosion that followed was unlike anything I'd ever witnessed in my family. Mom started crying, a sound of pure heartbreak that made my chest ache. Dad's face cycled through confusion, anger, and disappointment. Our guests stood in shocked silence, some pulling out their phones to verify they'd really just witnessed what they thought they'd witnessed. "Emma," Mom said through her tears, "please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me you didn't lie to us about something this important." Emma finally found her voice, but instead of confessing, she went on the attack. "You have no right," she screamed at me. "You had no right to humiliate me like this. This is your party, your day. Why couldn't you just let me have something too?" The admission was as clear as any confession. The crowd murmured in shock as Emma essentially confirmed everything I'd accused her of. "Let you have something?" I repeated, my own anger finally breaking through. "Emma, you didn't just take something. You lied to everyone who loves you. You made Mom and Dad worry about a grandchild that doesn't exist. You manipulated sympathy from people who genuinely care about you. This isn't about sharing attention. This is about deceiving our entire family." Emma broke down completely then, sobbing in a way that seemed genuine for the first time in weeks. But even in her breakdown, she couldn't take full responsibility. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she cried. I just needed. Everyone always pays attention to everyone else. And I'm always forgotten, always invisible. So you faked a pregnancy?" Dad's voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "You put your mother through weeks of worry and excitement over a grandchild that doesn't exist." The party was over. Guests began quietly leaving, some stopping to hug Jake and me, others simply slipping away to avoid the family drama they'd accidentally witnessed. In the span of 10 minutes, my gender reveal celebration had become the day I exposed my sister's elaborate deception. But as I watched Emma crumble under the weight of her lies finally being exposed, I realized I felt something unexpected, relief. For the first time in my adult life, the truth was more important than keeping Emma happy. After the last guest left, our family sat in my living room in stunned silence. Emma had stopped crying but remained curled up in a chair, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. Mom and Dad sat together on the couch, looking like they'd aged. 10 years in the past hour, Jake quietly began cleaning up the backyard, giving our family space to process what had just happened. The beautiful cake sat untouched on the table. We'd never gotten to the actual gender reveal that was supposed to be the centerpiece of the day. Dad broke the silence first. Emma, I need you to explain this to me. I need to understand how you could lie to us about something this serious. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I didn't plan for it to go this far. How far did you plan for it to go? I asked, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. I just wanted to be included. I wanted to be part of something important for once. Part of what? Mom asked, her voice breaking. Part of Alexis's pregnancy? Part of anything? Emma exploded again, her grief transforming back into anger. Do you know what it's like to watch everyone else hit these milestones while I'm still figuring out my life? Alexis has the perfect husband, the perfect house, the perfect career, and now the perfect pregnancy. Matt has his successful business. In Seattle, everyone always has something to celebrate, something to be proud of. So you decide to fake a pregnancy, Dad said flatly. I bought the test as a joke initially, Emma said, the words tumbling out now. I saw it online and thought it was funny. But then when I had it and Alexis announced her party, I thought about how everyone would react if I was pregnant, too. I thought about Mom calling to check on me, Dad being excited about another grandchild, everyone asking how I was feeling. So you took the fake test and lied to us, Mom said. I told myself it would just be for a few days. I thought I'd figure out how to take it back, maybe say I miscarried early or something. But then everyone was so happy, so excited, and you couldn't give up the attention, I finished. Emma nodded miserably, and then I had to keep making it seem real. The symptoms, the ultrasound, the doctor appointments I kept making excuses about. It got bigger and bigger, and I didn't know how to stop it. Dad stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the mess of party decorations in the backyard. Emma, do you understand what you've done? Do you understand that your mother has been planning a nursery in her head? That she's been worried sick every time you called with symptoms? That we've been telling our friends and co-workers about our new grandchild? I know, Emma whispered. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, Dad said, turning back to face her. This isn't like the times you exaggerated stories for attention or made yourself the center of drama. This is a deliberate, calculated deception that hurt everyone who loves you. Mom pulled out her phone and showed Emma something. I've been keeping a journal, she said, her voice thick with emotion, writing down everything about both pregnancies, yours and Alexis's, so I could remember. Every detail to share with my grandchildren someday. Look at this. She read from her phone. Emma called today crying about morning sickness. Made her some soup and brought it over. She looks so pale and tired. Worried about her health, but she insists she's fine. Such a brave girl, just like when she was little. Emma started crying again as Mom continued reading entries about doctor's appointments that never happened, symptoms that were fabricated, and worry that was completely unnecessary. I believed every word, Mom said. Every single lie you told me, I believed and worried about and celebrated with you. That's when Emma finally broke down completely, not with the dramatic sobs she'd used to manipulate sympathy, but with what seemed like genuine remorse and shame. I need help, she whispered. I know I need help. I don't know why I do things like this. I don't know how to stop. It was the first completely honest thing she'd said in weeks. Dad sat back down, his anger seeming to deflate into exhaustion. Yes, you do need help, professional help. And you need to make this right with everyone you lied to. How? Emma asked. How do I make this right? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw not the manipulative performer who'd been stealing my spotlight, but a deeply troubled person who was finally acknowledging her problems. You start by writing a confession, I said, a real one. You tell everyone exactly what you did and why. And then you get therapy, and you work on figuring out why you need attention so desperately that you're willing to hurt people to get it. Emma nodded slowly. Can you ever forgive me? I thought about it for a long moment. Eventually, maybe. But Emma, this can never happen again. Ever. I can't have someone in my child's life who lies and manipulates for entertainment. I understand, she said, and for the first time, I believed she actually did. 2 weeks after the disastrous gender reveal party, our family met with Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a family therapist who specialized in dysfunction and manipulation patterns. The irony that Emma had used this woman's name for her fake doctor wasn't lost on any of us, though Dr. Martinez took it in stride when we explained the situation. What Emma did fabricating a pregnancy for attention is actually more common than you might think. Dr. Martinez explained to our family during our first session. It's called pseudopsoriasis when someone genuinely believes they're pregnant, but what Emma did was different. This was a calculated deception, which suggests deeper issues with self-worth and attention-seeking behaviors. Emma sat quietly during most of the session, occasionally answering direct questions, but mostly listening as Dr. Martinez helped our parents understand the psychology behind her actions. In families where one child consistently receives more attention, whether positive or negative, other children often develop maladaptive strategies to compete for that attention, the therapist continued. Emma learned early that dramatic behavior in crisis situations brought her the focus she craved. I thought about our childhood, about all the times Emma's illnesses or emergencies had taken precedence over my achievements or Matt's needs. She'd been rewarded for being dramatic, for needing help, for creating situations where she was the center of concern. But why a pregnancy? Mom asked, tears still coming easily when she talked about the deception. Why something so important, so sacred? Emma finally spoke up, her voice small and ashamed. Because it's something Alexis had that I couldn't have. She had the perfect marriage, the perfect house, the career she wanted. When she announced she was pregnant after trying for so long, I felt like she was finally getting something I could never compete with. So I decided to get it too. But you could have gotten pregnant legitimately, Dad pointed out. You're young, healthy. With what boyfriend? Emma asked bitterly. I can't keep a relationship longer than 6 months because I'm exhausting to be around. I know that. Every guy I've dated has eventually gotten tired of my need for constant attention and drama. Dr. Martinez nodded. Self-awareness is actually the first step toward change, Emma. Recognizing these patterns is crucial for breaking them. Over the course of several sessions, a clearer picture emerged of Emma's emotional state. She'd been struggling with depression and anxiety for years, using attention-seeking behavior as a way to cope with feelings of inadequacy and invisibility. The fake pregnancy was just the most extreme example of a pattern that had been building for decades. I've been enabling this, Mom admitted during one particularly difficult session. Every time Emma created a crisis, I responded by giving her exactly what she wanted: attention, sympathy, special treatment. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was actually reinforcing her worst behaviors. Dad nodded grimly. And we were so focused on managing Emma's needs that we didn't notice how it was affecting Alexis and Matt. We basically taught our children that manipulation works better than honest communication. Dr. Martinez handed Emma a notebook during our third session. I want you to start keeping a feelings journal, she said. Every time you feel the urge to create drama or seek attention in unhealthy ways, I want you to write down what you're really feeling underneath that urge. Emma's first entries, which she shared with permission during family sessions, were revealing. Feeling invisible again? Alexis posted ultrasound photos on Facebook and got 47 likes and comments. I posted about my new job and got 3 likes. Want to comment something dramatic on her post to get attention? Mom called Alexis to check on her pregnancy. Didn't call me at all today. Feel like I don't matter unless something's wrong with me. Saw Jake bringing Alexis flowers just because. No one has ever loved me enough to bring me flowers for no reason. Want to call mom crying about something to feel important? Reading these entries, I began to understand my sister's behavior in a new way. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it helped explain the deep insecurity and need for validation that had driven her to such extreme measures. Emma, I said during one session, I had no idea you felt so invisible. I always thought you were the favorite, the one who got all the attention. I got attention when things were wrong, Emma replied, when I was sick or in trouble or having a crisis. But I never got attention just for being me, just for existing and being okay. It was a revelation that changed how I saw our entire family dynamic. Emma hadn't been the spoiled favorite child. I thought she'd been a desperately insecure person who'd learned that the only way to matter was to be in crisis till the therapy sessions were painful but necessary, forcing all of us to confront our roles in creating and maintaining the dysfunction that had led to Emma's deception. After 2 months of family therapy, I made one of the most difficult decisions of my life. I wrote Emma a letter explaining that while I was working toward forgiveness, I needed a period of no contact to protect my mental health during the remainder of my pregnancy. The letter was 3 pages long, carefully crafted with input from Dr. Martinez to be clear but not cruel. Emma, I love you, but I can't have someone in my life right now who has shown they're willing to manipulate and deceive me during one of the most important times in my life. You faked a pregnancy to steal attention from my gender reveal party, and in doing so, you violated my trust in a way that I'm still processing. This isn't permanent, but it is necessary. I need to focus on my pregnancy and preparing for motherhood, without worrying about what crisis or drama might emerge next. I need to know that the people closest to me are honest and supportive, not competitive and manipulative. I hope you continue with therapy and work on understanding why you felt the need to lie to people who love you. When you've made genuine progress, not just promises, but actual sustained change, we can talk about rebuilding our relationship. I hand-delivered the letter to Emma's apartment, along with a formal no-contact agreement that I drafted with the help of a lawyer friend. It wasn't legally binding, but it made my boundaries clear and documented. Emma's response came 2 days later, a text message that said simply, "I understand, I'm sorry." The relief I felt was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time in months, I could focus on my pregnancy without wondering what Emma would do next to steal attention or create drama. Mom struggled with my decision more than Dad did. She called me several times, trying to convince me to give Emma another chance, and worried that I was breaking up the family. "Mom," I said during one particularly difficult conversation, "Emma broke the family when she decided to lie to all of us. I'm just protecting myself and my baby from further manipulation. But she's getting help. She's going to therapy twice a week. That's wonderful, and I genuinely hope it helps her. But I can't be her support system while she figures out how to be honest. I have to focus on becoming a mother." It took several conversations, but Mom eventually began to understand that my boundaries weren't punishment, they were self-care. Dr. Martinez helped her see that constantly pressuring me to reconcile with Emma was another form of enabling. putting Emma's needs above mine, even when Emma had been the one to cause harm. Dad was more supportive of my decision from the beginning. You have every right to protect yourself and your family, he told me. Emma's actions have consequences, and one of those consequences is losing your trust and presence in her life until she proves she's changed. Jake was my constant source of strength through this period. He never questioned my decision or suggested I was being too harsh. Instead, he focused on helping me prepare for our baby's arrival without the stress of family drama. Are you sad about missing Emma's journey toward getting better? He asked one evening as we assembled the crib in what would soon be our nursery. Thought about it carefully. I'm sad that it came to this, I said finally. I'm sad that my sister felt so desperate for attention that she was willing to hurt everyone who loves her. But I'm not sad about protecting our family from her dysfunction while she works on fixing herself. 3 months after I'd implemented the no contact boundary, I got a letter from Emma, not a text, not an email, but an actual handwritten letter delivered through Mom. In it. Emma detailed the work she'd been doing in individual therapy, the medications she'd started taking for depression and anxiety, and the support group she'd joined for people with attention-seeking behaviors. She didn't ask me to contact her or demand forgiveness. Instead, she simply updated me on her progress and told me she understood why I needed space. I'm learning to find validation from within instead of from other people's reactions to my crises, she wrote. It's harder than I thought it would be, but it's also kind of freeing. I don't have to constantly think of ways to make people pay attention to me. The letter felt different from Emma's previous communications, less dramatic, more thoughtful, and focused on her own growth rather than on getting a reaction from me. I didn't respond to the letter, but I kept it. It was the first sign that Emma might actually be changing, not just promising to change as my due date approached. I felt peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. My pregnancy had been reclaimed from Emma's manipulation, and I was able to focus on the joy and anticipation that this time was supposed to bring. Most importantly, I was modeling healthy boundary setting for my unborn child, showing them that it's okay to protect yourself from people who hurt you, even when those people are family. 6 months after the gender reveal party disaster, I was finally able to see the justice in what had happened, even though it hadn't felt like justice at the time. Emma's deception had been exposed publicly, just as publicly as she'd announced. Her fake pregnancy. The consequences had been swift and lasting. Several family friends had reached out to check on me after witnessing Emma's breakdown at the party. Word had spread through our social circle, and Emma found herself having to explain her actions to people who'd offered congratulations and support during her pregnancy. The embarrassment was something she'd brought on herself, but it was still difficult to watch someone I'd once protected struggle with public shame. More importantly, Emma was facing real consequences for her behavior for perhaps the first time in her life. Mom and Dad had stopped their pattern of rushing to fix her problems or make excuses for her actions. When Emma called crying about being embarrassed or struggling, they listened supportively but didn't try to minimize her discomfort or solve her problems for her. It's hard to watch her suffer, Mom admitted to me during one of our weekly phone calls. But Dr. Martinez helped me understand that rescuing Emma from the consequences of her actions wasn't helping her grow. Dad had taken a more direct approach. He'd made it clear to Emma that any future relationship with him would depend on her maintaining honesty and continuing her therapy work. Trust is earned back slowly, he told her, and I'm not willing to pretend this didn't happen just to make family gatherings more comfortable. Meanwhile, I was experiencing my pregnancy the way it was meant to be experienced, with joy, anticipation, and the full support of people who loved me honestly. At 35 weeks, I was glowing with health and happiness, finally able to focus on the miracle growing inside me rather than on managing family drama. My latest ultrasound photo sat on our refrigerator. A real one, taken by a real doctor, showing our healthy baby girl who would arrive in just a few weeks. Unlike Emma's fake ultrasound, this image represented genuine hope, authentic love, and the promise of new life created through patience and commitment. Jake and I had settled on the name Charlotte Rose, after my grandmother, who taught me the importance of speaking truth even when it was difficult. It felt fitting that our daughter would carry the name of someone who'd never tolerated dishonesty or manipulation. The nursery was complete now, painted in soft yellow with white furniture and delicate floral accents. Unlike the dramatic pink and blue theme I'd originally planned for the gender reveal, Charlotte's room was peaceful and serene, a reflection of the calm that had settled over our lives since I'd established boundaries with Emma. I'd received 2 more letters from Emma over the months, each one showing continued growth and self-awareness. In the most recent one, she'd written about getting a promotion at work and feeling proud of an accomplishment that had nothing to do with crisis or drama. I'm learning that real satisfaction comes from actual achievements, not from getting people to worry about me, she'd written. I still have days when I want to create some emergency to get attention, but I'm getting better at recognizing those urges and finding healthier ways to feel important. I still hadn't responded to her letters, but I'd started to feel something shifting in my heart when I read them. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of hope that someday we could have a real relationship built on honesty rather than manipulation. Dr. Martinez had prepared me for this possibility during one of my individual sessions. Healing doesn't happen on anyone's timeline but your own, she'd said. You'll know when you're ready to consider rebuilding that relationship, and it will be based on Emma's consistent actions over time, not just her words. As I folded tiny clothes and arranged them in Charlotte's dresser, I thought about the lessons I wanted to teach my daughter. I wanted her to know that love doesn't mean accepting dishonesty or manipulation. I wanted her to understand that healthy relationships require mutual respect and trust. Most importantly, I wanted her to see that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold people accountable for their actions. The woman I'd been before Emma's deception would have forgiven her immediately, would have made excuses for her behavior, and would have prioritized family harmony over personal boundaries. But the woman I'd become, the woman who was about to become Charlotte's mother, understood that real love sometimes requires difficult choices. Justice, I'd learned, wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about truth, consequences, and the opportunity for genuine change. Charlotte Rose Manson arrived on a crisp October morning, 3 days past her due date, after 12 hours of labor that felt both eternal and surprisingly quick. When the doctor placed her in my arms, all 7 pounds, 2 ounces of perfect, squirming humanity, I understood for the first time what people meant when they talked about love at first sight. Jake cried harder than I did, his hands shaking as he touched our daughter's tiny fingers. "She's perfect," he whispered, and she was. Dark hair like mine, Jake's nose, and the most alert brown eyes I'd ever seen on a newborn. The hospital bracelet around my wrist read Manson, Alexis patient, and the matching one around Charlotte's tiny ankle read Manson, Charlotte Rose, infant. These simple plastic bands represented everything real and honest and beautiful about bringing life into the world. No deception, no manipulation, no stolen attention, just the pure miracle of a healthy baby born to parents who'd waited 5 years to meet her. Mom and Dad arrived an hour after Charlotte's birth, both of them emotional as they met their granddaughter. Mom held Charlotte with tears streaming down her face, and I watched her whisper promises about all the love and support this little girl would receive. "She's absolutely beautiful," Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. "Jake, Alexis, you've created something perfect." The absence of Emma was noticeable, but not devastating. I'd wondered if I would feel sad about my sister missing Charlotte's birth, but instead I felt protected. This moment was pure and honest, unmarred by drama or competition for attention. Charlotte was being welcomed into the world by people who were genuinely celebrating her existence, not using it as an opportunity to create their own storylines. Over the next few days, friends and family visited to meet Charlotte. The genuine joy and love in our hospital room was everything I'd hoped for but hadn't experienced during my pregnancy. People brought meals, offered hope, and shared in our happiness without any hidden agendas or manufactured crises that my brother Matt flew in from Seattle, meeting his niece for the first time and staying for a week to help us adjust to parenthood. It was the longest he'd spent at home in years, and I realized that Emma's absence had created space for more authentic family connections to flourish. "I've been thinking," Matt said one evening as we sat in Charlotte's nursery watching her sleep, "about how different this feels from family gatherings when we were kids. There's no tension, no waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's just peaceful." He was right. Without Emma's need for constant attention and crisis, our family interactions had become genuinely supportive and nurturing. We could focus on what was actually happening: a new baby, a growing family, real milestones and celebrations instead of managing manufactured drama. When Charlotte was 2 weeks old, I received a card in the mail. The return address was Emma's, but instead of a letter filled with manipulation or demands for contact, it was a simple congratulations card with a short message. "Congratulations on Charlotte's arrival. I know she's lucky to have you as her mother. I hope someday I'll be healthy enough to be a positive presence in her life, but I understand that's something I need to earn. Thank you for showing me what real consequences look like. It's helping me grow. Love, Emma." I read the card twice, then placed it in Charlotte's baby book, not because I was ready to reconcile with Emma, but because it represented something important: the possibility that people could change, that consequences could lead to growth, and that honest communication was possible even after profound betrayal. As I sat in our living room, nursing Charlotte and watching Jake assemble yet another piece of baby equipment, I reflected on how much my life had changed in the past year. I'd gone from being the accommodating sister who always stepped aside for Emma's drama to being a mother who prioritized truth and healthy boundaries above family harmony. The woman who discovered that fake pregnancy test in Emma's bathroom had been devastated by the betrayal but uncertain about how to respond. The woman holding Charlotte now knew exactly who she was and what she valued. I was no longer willing to model dysfunction for my child or to teach her that manipulation was an acceptable way to get attention or love. Charlotte stirred in my arms, making the tiny mewing sounds that newborns make when they're dreaming. I looked down at her perfect face and made her a silent promise. She would grow up in a family where truth mattered, where love didn't come with conditions or competitions, and where she would never have to choose between honesty and keeping the peace. My gender reveal party had been ruined by Emma's deception, but Charlotte's actual reveal, her emergence into the world as a real, breathing, beautiful human being, had been everything I dreamed it would be. Sometimes the most important revelations aren't about pink or blue cake filling. Sometimes they're about discovering who you really are when forced to choose between enabling dysfunction and protecting what matters most. Charlotte, Rose, was worth every difficult choice I'd made, every boundary I'd established, and every moment of standing alone in defense of the truth. She was my new beginning, the start of a family built on honesty, love, and the courage to do what's right even when it's hard.